few months ago, a mother called Lucie in a panic because her 4-year-old son refused to sleep in his room. Every night, he points to the same corner of the wall and says the same sentence. "The lady wants me to play with her." Except there's no one there, no noise, no movement, nothing. The family thinks it's just a child's imagination until the day the little one describes this mysterious lady, with details that no one has ever told him about. Details that match perfectly with the former owner of the house, and that's just one of the 21 stories Lucie told me today. Lucie is a medium, or rather, she senses things that some people feel without knowing how to explain them. Those phobias that come out of nowhere, those places that make us feel uneasy, those fields that drain us, those family patterns that keep coming back again and again. Whether you believe in it or not, she has stories that make you think, that shake you up, and that sometimes give you chills, all without ever talking about ghosts. Today, we're going to explore that world, the one we can't see, but that some people say they can feel. Welcome to Story Cube with, for the first time, one of the greatest mediums of our generation.
My mom saw the spirit standing in front of her bedroom door every morning. I advise everyone not to play with Ouija boards or try to summon spirits or say you're going to call on guides. You don't know who will answer. However, I never just went to a past life just to see what it was like. When you go there, it's because there's something that needs to be relieved, and you always go to the moment of death. We go into a past life, and actually we realize that for reasons of his own in that life, he killed her and the children.
Hello everyone, welcome to StoryCube. Today on StoryCube, we have a very special guest. Her name is Lucie, and actually she has a rather unusual job. She is a medium. I suggest without further delay that Lucie introduces herself to us first before we start. So, what is this rather unusual job? What do you actually do in life after all?
So, the word medium is a term I chose because I am simply a channel that transmits messages and energies to people who ask me for them.
So, more concretely, does that mean people come to you to ask you for something?
Sometimes to find out a little bit if their deceased loved ones are doing well. Other times to know if the choices they've made are really the right ones, and sometimes because they want to change direction, their world or their environment. But they need to be comforted and reassured about what they feel deep inside.
When you say, if their deceased are doing well, does that mean you receive information from them? How does being a channel work? What are you a channel between exactly?
Well, actually, if I put it simply, for me, our body is like a tube, and we all have antennas that pick up messages and energies around us. It's just that some people have certain predispositions. For example, when we learn things, some of us are more visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Well, for me in mediumship, I'm kinesthetic. So I feel what's around me and what people have in their bodies and in their energy. And so a deceased person is also an energy, so when they need to present themselves, I'm able to pick up on them. I like to say I open up my antennas, my Wi-Fi.
Can you kind of choose when you decide to open your antennas, in quotes, or can it sometimes happen at unexpected moments?
That's a very good question. At first I went through it passively. That means you pick up everything, all the time. You can't separate things. You don't know if you should say what you feel about the person, or if someone who's passed away is coming to see you, or if you feel that the person is going through something complicated. And actually I decided to respect free will. And if I'm not asked, I don't do anything. In my previous job, I was a manager, so you never really stop working. And at some point, I told myself I needed to set hours and boundaries. Well, actually, in energy work, I do the same thing, meaning I open up and turn on my Wi-Fi. So when I'm going about my daily life, I don't pick up on the messages.
Yes, that's right.
I chose to refuse to be at the disposal of the invisible.
And you only open up when necessary?
When I'm in a session that is scheduled and has been requested by someone.
How does the session actually go? Before we get into the heart of the matter, I think people might really be interested in this. Do you, I don't know, spend an hour and a half with someone and then something happens? Or is it possible that sometimes the deceased doesn't show up? How does it work?
So I have two types of sessions. I have 1-hour sessions, which are called guidance sessions. That's where I pick up all the information around them and pass it on to them. I call that the assessment. And then I have sessions that I call soul healing, where I do the guidance part. And then there's an extra hour where we do energy healing. So if we see that in our energy channel, there might be crystallized emotions, maybe past lives that interfere, or transgenerational ties that can block us. Well, what we do is cleanse, update, and reprogram our body.
Okay, that's really interesting. We'll discuss it more later. I have a random question. How did you get started in this field? Did it just happen, or how did it begin?
The famous question. Well, ever since I was little, I could feel things a lot. For me, that was normal. But then I realized that wasn't the case for everyone. When you see your friends and family at school, you notice you're not noticing the same things. As a teen, I shut those things out because they overwhelmed me. I was never attacked or bothered by anything, but not living in the same reality as everyone else is always a bit complicated. And as an adult, I had everything to be happy. My home, a great job. And overnight, I felt like I was no longer aligned with those values. And suddenly, my senses opened up again. And so I started to pick up on everything happening around me.
And so at that point, you said to yourself, I'm going to try to get into this.
Yes, actually understanding how people worked and what I could sense from them, I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to do coaching. And very quickly, I realized that it wasn't coaching, that it was other information I was able to pick up.
To get a bit more concrete, does that mean you can, for example, perceive messages that the deceased can give you, or is it just emotions? How does that...
Well, I have certain deceased people who come to explain to me how they died because they need recognition. Some also need dignity regarding the way they passed away. Some need to reassure their family by explaining whether or not they suffered. Once I had a very striking experience when I was just starting out, where I was talking with the person, and I started to feel a lot of pain in my chest and throat. And I stopped the person who was talking to me and I say, listen, I have someone coming to me and there is cancer. Here, the trachea. And then the person breaks down and says to me, that's my dad. So actually the deceased are already making themselves known. I don't want their first names. They come to me on their own. If they have a message, they deliver it through my body. And if I have to connect with the deceased person, it's like I'm connecting the deceased and the person via Bluetooth.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
There you go. But I'm not going to make a connection. I'm going to give messages. And messages, that's not my way of doing things.
Okay, same. It's kind of a silly question, but to get to a point where you transmit those messages, do you go through a learning stage? It's silly, but I once knew someone who attended a mediumship school. Do those really exist? Did you have to do something like that, or how does it work?
So I trained in coaching specifically to have a support structure. And then for me, mediumship is the foundation of what I share. But I have a form, I have something.
Okay.
I think it's good to have places where we can create synergy with people who are experiencing the same things as us. It already makes us feel less alone. And it also helps us understand the limits of what we are allowed to do and not do, rather than having to experience it on our own, either by burning our wings a little or by being attacked, polluted, or easily parasitized by things that could be around us.
Is it you, personally, I don't know, have you ever been able to communicate with have you ever felt things with someone who passed away that you knew, for example?
Me personally? Yes, of course, like my ancestors who have passed away. There are times in my life when I can experience certain manifestations. And to go even further, even certain souls that have come around me, but who weren't necessarily able to arrive like children, I can also perceive them. I am a medium who is very, very connected to the souls of babies who couldn't be born or who left early.
That's it, it's wild. So even an unborn baby has a soul that goes somewhere after. Is there a term for that? Maybe an afterlife or something?
I call it the source, the light. And then I think depending on our beliefs, our religions, everyone uses the words they want.
It seems to me that sometimes you've talked about the world of the invisible.
Yes.
What does that term actually mean?
Every day we use Wi-Fi, those are waves, it brings information. But actually it's the same thing. A soul that is no longer in a body, in an earthly vehicle, can be disembodied, but it is still present. And some souls will remain in what we call the lower astral, so on the earthly world, on the earthly plane, but they have more vital energy. So these are souls that are sometimes lost, sometimes angry, sometimes staying for a loved one. And then we have the souls that go up to the light, to the home, and they can be our protectors, our guardian angels, and they can watch over all of us.
Have you ever been scared by what you saw or felt?
No, I've never been afraid because I actually have faith in the light and in what happens. For me, we are beings of light in human bodies, not the other way around. So for me, it's just us without masks and as pure as possible, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get to the different stories and anecdotes you've sent us through your work, it might sound silly, but people are wondering why there's a candle in the studio after all.
Well, if there's one basic thing I need for work, it's my candle. The light protects. And having this candle is the moment when I allow myself to open my Wi-Fi and to be able to talk about who I am, what I do, and all the stories I've experienced.
So it's a kind of protection, actually.
Yes, absolutely.
First, I wanted to discuss the wandering soul aspect. So what is that exactly, a wandering soul?
So it's a soul that no longer has a body. The body is a vehicle, and a wandering soul is a soul that has remained on the earthly plane. As I said earlier, there can be different reasons why souls stay. Some will stay because they want to remain close to their family, they don't want to leave them. Others because they are attached to material possessions, so they want to stay in their house. Others were too angry, so they can't leave, they're too held back by emotions. And then some didn't believe at all that we could be anything other than human beings, so they find themselves a bit stuck. And there's a last category, which is the one I have a lot of compassion for. It's for those who had traumatic deaths, who had very violent deaths, and who sometimes don't even understand that they're dead.
Do you have a story you've collected involving a traumatic death that you can share without identifying those involved?
Absolutely. I receive a young woman who explains to me that one of her friends has passed away and that she would like to hear from her. So I choose, in my general conditions of mediumship, to be more connected to those above than to the souls who are below.
Okay,
It's a choice. What is it for?
what is it for?
In terms of vibrations and protection, I am much more aligned with the deceased who wanted to return home than with those who are panicking and don't necessarily want to leave. That's it. I also respect the free will of the deceased and won't force them to move on.
Yes, of course.
And because of that, I also don't want him to drain me or pollute me, because he doesn't have any vital energy. So if he comes near me, potentially I'm a walking battery. So in this story, this woman who stays in the lower astral because...
Is the lower astral where wandering souls are?
Exactly, she hasn't moved on. She's lost in the movie because actually she was stabbed. All of that, just when she tells me, my friend is dead, I start to feel something in my stomach. I tell her, but there was a seatbelt, we were in a car. She tells me, no, and I tell her, listen, I feel something in my stomach, and I feel the blade in my back. And this woman was stabbed, and then she collapses and tells me, yes, she was stabbed, she was 6 months pregnant. And actually, I allowed her friend's soul to come in because she needed recognition for us to see what had happened. And actually, she needed to know if her baby was still there or if the baby's soul had gone up, so she couldn't go up. She still had her maternal instinct.
In the end, are you able to know that, or not necessarily?
From the moment I have a soul reaching out to me for information, if it's right, I'm given the information, and I receive the information. I don't go looking for it.
And in this case, for example, her baby, for instance, was...
He had moved on. So the moment she knew, she moved on too. We didn't actually have to do a soul crossing. We needed to help her recognize the situation and give her the perspective she couldn't achieve on her own.
Have you ever had, for example, lost souls or stories like that? I remember one where you mentioned, for example, that it was a lost soul attracted by the light of the living.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
As I mentioned earlier, they no longer have bodies, so they don't have any vital energy. Well, they have to feed somewhere.
Okay.
Well, some souls see light in others, so they recharge themselves from the living because they don't have any vital energy. In this story about someone who was polluted, parasitized, I had a woman in her 40s come to see me and she said, listen, I've been going through one problem after another for months. Between my car breaking down, my kids struggling, and conflicts with my husband, I used to love my job, but now I don't feel good there. It's really just a string of bad luck. And then when I connect with her, I feel a really heavy, very dense energy. And actually, I realize that she has an energy breach in her back. So an energy breach, it's what you could call a scar. Just like on your body, a scar makes your skin more fragile. Well, energetically, a breach means things can easily get through. Actually, she had a colony of wandering souls that were connected to her like a beacon, and they were attracted to her light, so they latched onto her. And so she was carrying what we call low vibrations, because the lower astral isn't something that allows you to recharge, so actually she was being drained. What was happening energetically had consequences on her tangible material life. And sometimes we say to ourselves, I don't understand, right now I'm not doing well. Actually, sometimes it's not entirely our own doing.
But how does that affect the real world? Does it mean she's struggling mentally and her actions change, or is it just...
So there's the mental side, because there's a part of you that's trying to manage what's happening and you realize that you don't have control over everything. So that's confusing. And there's also the part where if we consider that our body is an outlet and there are 150 plugs connected to it, it takes energy from you, even if you feel like it doesn't.
That's right.
Well, that's what she was experiencing, actually. That's what she was going through.
What do you do in those situations?
Well, first I help her identify it. I explain to her what's happening, then I help her feel it. Because I'm not the one to say, you have to unplug. And by helping her feel it, that's when she feels the discomfort. She feels that it's not normal, and she just wants to unplug the wires, and I'm going to help her remove the wires.
Okay, so how does that work? How can you guide someone to unplug? It's a bit abstract.
So earlier, you were asking me about the type of services. So guidance is really, I explain, and energy healing, I explain, and then we take action. Well, you see, when I put on my let's take action hat, I consider myself a bit like a technician. And our body, I switch it to live box mode. And for me, each of us has our own characteristics. And gradually, actually, we send your user manual. So it helps me to say, we're going to remove it like this. For you, it works like that.
Super interesting. There's another story you sent us where apparently there was someone or a deceased person, I don't know, who didn't want us to be in their home. Is that possible? Does that happen?
Yes, that happens. Some deceased people are attached to possessions, while others are attached to places. And so sometimes they don't want to leave, they want to stay on this plane. And then sometimes we also have deceased people who stay because they haven't finished something. You know, sometimes you want to accomplish things in your life, but you weren't able to do them, and you experience them through other people. So I'm going to explain and tell you a story that I personally experienced. I had my first child, and my husband and I bought our first house where I always felt comfortable. And the moment I walk through the house with my baby's carrier, I feel someone watching me. I feel oppressed. I feel judged. Well, I tell myself, you're tired. You just gave birth. It's nothing. You know, days go by and this feeling doesn't leave me.
Have you been living in the house for a long time already?
We had been in the house for 2 years, and I had never had any particular issues. But really, every day, it gets a little more intense. And then there was a moment when I was changing my son's diaper, and I felt someone behind my right shoulder watching what I was doing, watching my son. I feel like there's someone watching my son in his room. And then one day I'm doing something in the house, my son starts crying and I can't go upstairs right away. And I feel a judgment of, you need to go check on your son. And actually, that's when I understand that the person who lived in the house before, whose name is Juliet, who died in the house, didn't have any children. So there was a stillborn child and she couldn't bring her baby home, and I brought my child home, so she considered my son as her own.
What do you do in that case?
So at the very beginning, I told myself, okay, I understand that you're here, but this is my baby. The famous story I just told was the last straw for me. That's when I said, okay, that's enough, and took a stand. Listen, I'm the mom, speaking in my own house. I know you're here, it's okay, because it used to be your house, but now today it's my home. So whether you go upstairs or not, I don't care. You have the right to stay on the earthly plane. But he's not your baby, he's mine. So now you leave him alone. I forbid you from going into his room. I forbid you from judging what I do. I do what I want and what I can with my son. And the only place you're allowed to stay in the house is in the basement.
Okay.
And at first it might seem so abstract to think, but you can't just kick out a soul like that or ask it to leave. It's like telling someone, don't ring my doorbell at this time. Usually they'll respect it, and if not, I have a right to be upset. That's what boundaries are. That day I realized you can set energetic boundaries.
And since then, does she respect it or not necessarily? How is it?
Since then I moved out.
Okay.
From the day I asked her, she never came to the house again and stayed in the basement. When I moved out, 2 friends who knew the story were there, and I left the house briefly. And both of them told me, we felt Juliet. She came back up to the kitchen. So I thought that was quite beautiful too, because at the time, mediumship wasn't my world at all. But there, I really felt something, and the fact that my friends sensed her too.
That's it.
I found that
Incredible, because in the end, can everyone perceive this kind of thing, or is it a gift? I don't know. You see?
So let's take out the word gift.
Okay, I don't know, you know.
No, we all have our abilities. Some people are more clairvoyant, some clairaudient, and others focus on feelings. I focus on feelings, which I appreciate. Because the body can't invent an emotion, the body can't invent a feeling. Whereas with the mind, we could always wonder if we're imagining what's happening. We all have antennas, so we can pick up on what's happening in the invisible.
Damn, that's crazy. I'm stepping out of context a bit here, but if, let's say someone, I don't know, after watching the video, it's weird to say, but wanted to feel better or wanted to try to feel what you feel. Are there things, any advice they could follow? Are there, I don't know, any books they could read? What would you ultimately recommend to people who want to try to connect and discover this world?
So, to open up your intuition above all, you shouldn't try to force things.
Okay.
It becomes dangerous when you do that. It can generate ego and it can attract entities to us that we might not necessarily want to be around.
Okay, yeah. I cancel right away.
On the other hand, doing research, reading, and today, YouTube is also a great platform to get information about the invisible and how to open up your intuition. The way I did it is that I always trusted what I perceived. And actually, no one else can validate what we feel and perceive for us. And the more a person builds that trust in themselves, the easier it will be for them to open up their intuition.
Yeah. Has it ever happened to you, I don't know, to have souls that stay to watch over someone or who don't necessarily want to leave in order to protect someone? I don't know.
Yes, I have the story of a woman who was a nurse and her husband was a doctor. And she stayed with him until the end with that cancer that took him down.
Did he stay with her or did she?
She stayed with him until he passed away.
Yeah, okay.
She comes in, she's really gentle and all that, but behind her, he's there. And since he doesn't have any vital energy, well, without meaning to, he takes her vital energy.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, he stays connected in the end.
Absolutely. And he's there out of kindness, telling himself, I'm not abandoning you, I'm here, I'm watching over you. But actually, he was at a tipping point where his presence was becoming harmful because he was interfering with his wife's daily life more than supporting her. And so when I simply explained that to his wife, she said, okay, well, I would like to be able to say goodbye to him and tell him that it's okay with me if he leaves. Sometimes we're the ones who ask our loved ones to stay. But in this case, it wasn't like that. It was really him who wanted to stay. And so we did the energetic work to open the portal for him so he could go back to where he wanted to go.
Can we feel an emotion when we're in, for example, when we're a wandering soul or something like that? So can he be sad because they're telling him to move on? Or is it...
Yes, actually, when we connect to souls, there's no filter at all. So if the soul is angry, we feel it. If it's sad, it tells us right away. Since I connect them to each other, the person deep down feels what the energy is transmitting to them. So it's not like, oh, he's telling me he's sad. It's that she herself feels deep inside that he's sad. And that's what I find beautiful. People often ask me to explain in detail or write it down, but I say you can't understand without experiencing it. This lets them experience it and truly connect with their partner on this final journey.
Are there some darker sides in the end to this lower astral?
Yes.
Wow. Like what, for example?
Well, there are some aspects where there are souls that don't want to move on, and then there are energies that aren't necessarily souls, and they're pretty heavy things. By the way, I advise everyone not to play with Ouija boards or try to summon spirits or say, I'm going to call on guides. You never really know who is answering, especially.
Is that really something you advise against as a medium?
I'm the first to work with the invisible and not call on anyone.
Okay, damn, that's crazy. That's really interesting.
When we have fun opening portals, there are some who answer.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't know who we're calling or who will be beside us.
So in the end, this might be a silly question, but does that mean anyone can open a portal, or do you still need something specific? I'm just asking. For example, if a group of friends doesn't believe in this and just does it for fun, could it still accidentally happen? That's crazy.
Because we're activating something.
Okay, yeah.
Our mind is the human beings that we are. But when we die, do we say rest in peace to the mind or rest in peace to the soul? So for me, our flame is there, it's our souls that act. And when we talk about magic, magic is actually the soul acting. And so any action we take, whether consciously or unconsciously, the soul acts and can generate magic of any color. And so among these wandering souls, there are some that are playful, mischievous, and like to feed on fear and all kinds of heavy energies, the sadness in others. And so they come like leeches, attaching themselves to us to turn us into puppets.
And how does that work? Does the person suddenly start feeling sad, or is it...
Well, sometimes we start thinking everything is unfair. Everyone is mean, everyone is an idiot, nothing is going right. It's the whole universe's fault, it's never our fault. Just being in that kind of fighting, combative energy. We have the right to feel that some things in this world are unfair, but if we're always in that kind of energy, maybe we should ask ourselves, are we really the ones in control? And usually it means there's someone inside us who's manipulating us.
I also have a bit of a strange note, but it would be like, for example, what happens when soldiers die on the battlefield or people are tortured? Do they end up as wandering souls afterwards, or is it...
Well, it all depends. For example, on some battlefields, some soldiers don't know they've died, so they will remain wandering because they're really in the... We're lost in the movie.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
In the game, we don't know where we are. And there were others who were so angry. That vibration and emotion of anger keeps them on Earth. I'm from Picardy. In Picardy, we had some big battles. Well, when I pass by certain places, I can't look at the fields.
Okay.
Because the energy is so heavy, there are so many people that...
Damn, there are still hordes of people on the...
Yeah.
You actually, do you see that visually, or do you feel it?
I feel them, and if I perceive them, you know when you look at a candle and you see the glow of the candle?
Yes.
That's what I see.
Okay, so you see kinds of energies, heat like that, which... Okay, yeah, that's it actually. It's kind of a stupid question, but when we see it a bit in movies, or what do you actually think, by the way, about the way that world is represented? For example, in movies like ghosts or demons, things like that we see in films, is it something where you think, actually it doesn't look like that at all in real life? Or is it, how do you feel about that?
I pretty much agree. For me, everything that's created or imagined comes from somewhere. So for me, those representations come from somewhere.
I'm not going to sleep anymore, that's nice. It's over. No, but okay, super interesting. So you're not like, it's completely either.
Not at all. However, I chose not to be in the struggle, the fight, and trying to convince with that kind of energy because I know it will drain me. There you go. It's a choice of connection. Like some people would choose one radio station or another. I choose to be on a certain vibrational frequency.
But isn't there still a possibility? Let me tell you something random, but in movies, you often have things, I'm going a bit off topic here, but you have things where people are like possessed by another soul or things like that. In real life, do you think that's something that's possible?
When I mention leeches and manipulation.
It's kind of the same thing. And in that case, what happens? Can those people still control themselves, or what do they do if one day...
They endure it.
They endure it? Yeah, okay.
They endure it until the moment when some of them still have a bit of free will, so they manage to take certain steps and are able to free themselves on their own. And others will need energy healing or much stronger interventions to try to remove what is slowly consuming them.
Have you known people who felt they were followed by negative energies?
Yes, and some did because they played with that when they were younger, which caused cracks to form.
Oh, damn. Have you ever had cases where you... Damn, that's crazy. What do you do in those situations?
Nothing. If the person doesn't ask me, I have nothing to do. And if the person asks me, I will recognize the energy that's on the person. So if it's a heavy energy, if it's an energy that's trying to drain or suck, and then it's a bit like I'm setting boundaries so that it can remove the energy. So I disinfect, I cleanse to keep it away. And then those famous boundaries will help and make sure they can't come back anymore.
That's it. Is it possible that your intervention doesn't work?
Well, I've never had that happen because every time someone has asked me, it's been a situation where I could intervene.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I've never had to refuse a case, but there are words I choose not to use. Sometimes people come to me saying, someone put a spell on me, or I have black magic on me. For me, in my truth, there was an intention, there was a vibration, there was something, a jealousy. You see, it's something we've carried, and we're going to remove it. I don't focus on rituals or protocols. I'm rational and practical about what I feel and how we can remove it.
Does that mean that we can actually put an intention on someone or put bad energy on someone or...
Sometimes we're around certain people and afterward think, wow, I feel drained.
Yes.
Well, they drained us.
That's right, yes.
And some people we're going to be around will think, oh, wow, I'm super happy, I feel so good. Actually, it's the vibration we're facing, you know? So whether it's incarnated or disincarnated, a soul can take from us and give to us.
Do you feel people's vibrations all the time?
Yes, that I do.
Yes, I do. Okay, how does it work? Is it like...
I say that a soul has a smell, a color, a texture, and actually it's like everything else. There are smells we like more than others. I don't have to endure it or detach from the world because sometimes you just have to deal with certain smells. Well, I don't make eye contact. For me, the eyes are the gateway to the soul. And if I make visual contact, it really means I'm having an emotional exchange. Otherwise, I look at people here.
Okay.
And that way, there's no connection that can be created, so I don't have to endure it.
Okay, that works. How do you determine if you feel a vibration you like less or one you like more? Do you see colors visually or do you...
It's my face right away, my behavior, my posture. People often talk about neuro-linguistic programming and also about body language. It's not insignificant. When someone does that, they close off their solar plexus, so they don't want to be connected to the other person. When someone turns their body away, it's a sign of avoidance.
It's okay.
It's avoidance. When we have people who speak loudly and take up a lot of space, these are people who need love and recognition. It's not just about being a leader. There are also vulnerabilities. And so all of that is my choice. Do I feel like this is going to drain me, or is it just for me and I want to be in an exchange?
You mentioned earlier places that actually keep wandering souls' memories or recollections. Do you have more stories where you arrive somewhere and immediately feel it's already intense?
Well, first of all, if we talk about all sacred places, when you enter a church, I went to Lourdes a few months ago. From the moment you just enter the city, there are things that can happen. And then there are also certain houses, depending on where they were built, because the land itself has had lives too. It's not just about the walls themselves.
So do wandering souls, it's unrelated, but do wandering souls die at some point, or is it infinite? So you could see... What I'm saying is weird. It's infinite. So actually, you could technically see wandering souls from previous centuries?
Yes, there are some souls on battlefields. It's not just from World War I.
And how does it work actually? How do you determine if it's a soul from a long time ago or not? Do you...
Actually, in the vibration I feel from them, you can sense how they're dressed. You can sense the period, the era. For me, the thing that stands out the most is that I notice what the shoes are like. Are they barefoot? You know, I can feel the clothes, etc. So it's pretty easy to figure out the period when it's like that.
And you were talking earlier about sacred places. Are there other places like that which have left an impression on you, you know?
Well, since I'm not really into rituals and protocol, I try to distance myself from that. I'm also aware that feeling uncomfortable somewhere isn't always due to the people. It can be the environment of a place. Sometimes it's a restaurant due to the lingering energy there. I've even felt extremely uncomfortable at a friend's house. A few months later, she said a lady in white would appear between her and her twin sister's beds every night. Now I understand why I felt uneasy back then. There you go, it makes sense. And actually, the house is built on an old Native American cemetery. So there are signs, there are traces.
In movies, sometimes you also see these things. There are people who move in. There's often this horror movie pattern where you have a family moving into a house. And actually the house, it has a history and there's already a spirit that's been haunting the house for years with a backstory, something like that. So in real life, do you think this kind of thing is actually possible or not necessarily?
Well, I'll tell you my own story. When I was little, my parents bought an old farmhouse. And in that farmhouse, I spent my life playing in the attic alone because I'm an only child. When I had friends or cousins over, they couldn't go up to the attic. It just wasn't possible for them. I feel like someone is there. A man. It's not his house since it was once a medical facility. I think he was a patient there, and I feel really good in that place. Me, yes, but my parents, not at all. Actually, my parents, for years, every day, they would see this man. My father, every day, would go downstairs at 6 in the morning. At the bottom of the stairs, the man was there, and he would step aside to let my dad pass. My mom, every morning, would see the spirit who was in front of her bedroom door. It took them over 10 years to admit they were seeing this to each other. Yes, I can confirm there are residents in the houses.
How does it work in those cases? Do they eventually move out, become one with the person, or do they have to...
We were lucky to have a spirit who was kind. He was a gentleman who didn't want to harm us and wasn't trying to drive us away. Sometimes spirits break things, move objects, make noise, or creak to say, "This is our home, don't get too comfortable."
Yeah.
There are two solutions. Either we vibrate with fear and tell ourselves, "This is going to hurt us, it's going to get worse and worse." So that allows it to feed itself.
That's right, yes.
Since we're connecting to low vibrations, either we say, "Well, I understand that you were at home, but now this is my place." And we set those famous boundaries. If you want to stay around, we don't mind. However, you're really going to have to stop bothering us in every sense of the word.
So, the technique is to avoid matching its frequency and stay at a different one.
You got it.
Rather, how do you avoid matching its frequency? Is it...
At first, it's okay to admit to ourselves that we're scared of something we don't know, but then it's also about realizing, okay, actually, the more afraid I am, the more I realize it creates events.
All right.
At some point, you have to stop the vicious cycle. If you always do the same thing, you always get the same result. So you have to change your mindset and tell yourself, okay, this exists, because acknowledging what you're experiencing is very, very important. But you also need to have the side of, I pay the rent and local taxes. This is my home.
That's right.
You see, sometimes certain souls, earlier you mentioned the memory of places. When they don't realize they're dead or are attached to the building, they ask, "What are you doing in my house?" You see, sometimes it's like that too. Sometimes they're also afraid of us. In the vast majority of cases, from everything I felt, when it's not kindness from the other side, it's often fear. And it's more often that than being mean or manipulative.
Have you ever, even just once, I don't know, met a malicious soul where you really thought, damn, I feel like he really wants to do harm or there's something wrong?
Well, to me directly, yes.
Oh yeah?
Yes, it has already happened to me once in a pretty aggressive way. During the day, I can't say that I'm not reachable, but since I turn my Wi-Fi on and off, you can't just catch me on the fly easily. However, at night, when we dream, our body and our mind need to sleep, but our soul doesn't. Our soul goes wandering.
Okay.
It writes its memories in day, then it's done. If we talk about the library of the universe, the Akashic records, that's actually where every night we go to write our stories, and that's where mediums and psychics go to find information.
Okay, what is that? What's it called?
The Akashic records.
Okay.
The library of the universe. And there are all our lives, whether it's the one we're living today or the ones we've lived in other incarnations. And so sometimes there are certain souls that when they are asleep are a little more vulnerable. And it happened to me once that a very luminous soul approached me, and I saw myself reaching out my hand thinking, this is amazing. And the closer I felt I was getting to that soul, the more I felt it was becoming like poison.
Okay.
And so you also have to be very careful, because the most beautiful demons can disguise themselves in magnificent garments of light. So that's it. I was approached like that once in my dreams. So it was a night attack. In everyday life, in real life, no.
What do you do in that situation? How do you break that connection?
I realize that I'm not in control. So I ask my guides, my angels, my departed loved ones, my protectors, "Excuse me, I have a little problem. Can someone step in?" And they're the ones who take care of what's happening.
That's crazy. So does that mean it's something everyone has, or just you? Do you have guides or people who...
Everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
There are different types. You have the guide that's with you from birth to death. That's the one who kind of follows the teleprompter and where you are in your life. And then you have the deceased, so those who were part of your life and can watch over you. And then you have what I call the intermediate guides. You know, sometimes in life you say, "Oh, my mood has changed. I feel like I'm at a new stage." Well, usually you can say that's a new guide who has arrived because you're about to start something new.
You were talking earlier about reincarnation. Does that mean that then you can see people's past lives, for example, or not necessarily?
Absolutely. That's part of my mediumship package. In my truth, you are the Noah of today, but you've also had lives before and you'll have more after. When I see someone, it's like getting their book. Opening it, I see today's page and all their other chapters. The way I see it, what I like is that your guides, your protectors, give me your summary sheet with what I can help you with. But I don't just read the whole book for fun. And so past lives, we only get involved when there's a problem that hasn't been resolved.
So can you answer questions, for example, with things that happened in past lives? I'm saying something complicated, but if, for example, in my past life I had a violent death, will that have an impact on my current life?
Yes, there are certain phobias we can't explain. There are certain anxieties we can't explain. There are deep fears where we don't know why they're there. Well, sometimes it's because in a past life there's something that wasn't resolved.
That's right.
And that creates an interference. I like to crumple a page in a book, close it and point out, "See, it causes a problem." In reality, it affects the whole book. So if we haven't properly addressed the wounds, it will interfere with your reality. Very quickly, when I started my coaching sessions, I realized there were often past life interferences. However, I never went into past lives just to see what it was like. We go there when something needs relief, always returning to the moment of death, which is where intervention is needed.
That is, what does that mean?
Either because there was a traumatic death, or because the body was not buried with dignity, or the wishes of the deceased were not respected, or maybe there was a woman or a man who was killed but doesn't know who killed them and needs answers. There you go. And so all of that sometimes creates a blockage.
So how do you resolve this blockage then in the end?
First, I explain what I feel, and second, during the energy healing, I connect with the energy of the past life. It's a bit like taking the person to the movies. That's it. We don't go into meditation because I want to be able to do everything in co-creation, so I help the person get closer to the energy, and then at some point I will merge the energy of the past life with the life of today. And so some physical pains she might have, some anxieties, she will feel them very strongly because she realizes that they come from there.
You mentioned meditation earlier. As a medium, do you meditate often? Does it help you connect or sense vibrations better?
Well, personally, no, because I want to live my earthly life and I don't want to spend my life with my head in the clouds. I'm more in favor of mindfulness. That is, we have 5 senses and I want to use them. Actually, our 5 senses allow us to recharge, allow us to vibrate, and I think it's more relevant to connect to that. I think meditation is good for finding calm within yourself. Since I'm not naturally anxious or stressed, because I've accepted a lot of things for a long time, I really think it's a tool and that we should use it according to our personality. You definitely shouldn't force yourself to do it just because it's trendy or because people say it would be better for you. Some people just won't connect with it at all.
That's right. I have a section about something you sent called "The Child Who Saw the Deceased in His Room." Have you already told us that story or not yet?
No, this is another story. So I've had 2 of them. My son once called me and said, "Mom, there's a man in the corner of my room. I'm coming, sweetheart." And indeed, there was someone there who didn't mean him any harm, but who saw the light. Because children are extremely bright, and children up to 6 or 7 years old don't have a filter. So especially when a child tells you, "I see someone," they really do see someone. As a parent, don't say, "No, you're just imagining things." Instead say, "Okay, I believe you." You can also say, "I don't know what to do, but I believe you." That's enough. Acknowledging what they see will solve 70% of the problem. It's like when someone entered my home uninvited. I told my son, "Go back downstairs, I'll handle it," and went upstairs. And I simply explained to him, I understand that you're lost. I understand that you saw a beautiful light, but you also saw that he didn't want you there. It wasn't a deceased person from my family. It wasn't someone I knew. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to leave. And when I come back, if you haven't left, I'll ask other authorities to come take care of you. So also hand things over to the guide, the protector, whether it's mine or my son's. But by saying like, you don't have to come to our home without being invited.
And you said that when we're children, we don't have a filter. Does that mean you can see these kinds of things more easily? What does it really mean that you don't have a filter?
You see, for example, when I was little, I could feel that man behind me.
Yes.
I was 5 or 6 and it felt normal to me. Actually, at first, our mind is driven by education, beliefs, and loyalty. But in the beginning, the hard drive is blank. It's here, it's the flame that's speaking. Our soul knows very well that there's more than just the human side, so for them, there's nothing wrong. Babies see angels. There are plenty of videos you can watch where children will say, I see grandma, I see. So above all, even if you, as a parent, don't have the answer, don't tell your child that what they're seeing isn't real.
A little confession, just a bit random for those watching me. I'm asking you the question because it's kind of random, but when I was a kid, there were so many times when I felt like I was seeing things. And as I got older, it happened a lot less. Actually, not at all anymore, but I always wondered if it was something or not, but okay, really funny.
Didn't you ever wonder why you did this show?
Well, yeah, maybe I did too, actually.
That's the reason I'm here. Because if you weren't doing it for the right reasons, I wouldn't have come.
Yeah, damn, I'll take it as a compliment. And by the way, you told me there were 2 stories where you had a boy who saw the dead?
So I had a mom who came a few months earlier because her son was having a lot of very strong emotions. So, okay, when there's the terrible 2s, the year of 3, okay, those are not easy times, but here there was really an exaggeration of emotions. I talk with her about the things that might be missing, the emotional security he needs. Then, after months without contact, everything seems fine. One night she calls and says, he claims there are people in his room. I'm terrified. I don't know what to do. Okay.
Is he scared or is he...
He has night terrors. He screams at night. So I connect with him and I tell him, okay, tomorrow morning I'll take care of it. I don't want anything. No photo of the room, no details, nothing. And so the next day I connect and I feel that there's a bed pushed up against the wall, that there's some kind of piece of furniture, but I tell myself it's not a wardrobe. Okay, there's a piece of furniture.
How does it work when you do that? I didn't get it. Do you connect by video call?
I connect to the Wi-Fi in the room.
Okay, that works.
Just as I can do it on humans and animals, well, I also do it on places.
In terms of in person, are you there on site or are you...
I'm at home.
You're at home?
In my office.
Okay, I didn't understand.
Absolutely. Energy has no limits, it has no borders. So I just need to connect to the place. And I only connect if I'm asked to. I don't just go into places like that for fun. And so when I connect in the room, I can feel where the furniture is placed. And I see that there's a lady near the window and a gentleman just to the right of her bed. And I send a message back to the mother. There you go. I channeled this. The gentleman is someone who lived in this house when he was young. And the lady is just a lost soul. Since the little one has a lot of light, they were drawn to him. And then I tell myself there's something else. And I tell her, I have the feeling there's a rug not far from the wardrobe, and underneath, I sense a fault. Now, that's not my area of expertise. There are great geobiologists for that.
Sorry, what?
Geobiologists. In places, the walls have imprints, the floors have imprints, and sometimes the earth can have telluric faults, faults where there can be underground springs, and all of that also has an influence on our homes and our emotions. And actually, I realized that there is a geobiological fault under the child's bedroom, so I say to myself, okay, since the house, he was calm, they came in through the fault. And so I explain to the mother in detail, the bedroom is like this is happening, this is there, and that's when she tells me, yes, there really is a rug, yes, everything is arranged like that. The wardrobe I saw was actually a changing table, and then she sent me a photo of the bedroom. So the next day, I was able to do the ritual to help those souls leave the house, and the one who wanted to go to the light was able to do so. And that evening, I got a message. He's sleeping very well, thank you. The ordeal is over.
Ultimately, it's somewhat like, though not the best comparison in some movies, they sometimes bring in a... Also, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. But they often bring in a Christian guy who actually drives it away.
Yes.
Those spirits. Does it work a bit like that or not at all? What do you think about that, by the way?
Well, I totally agree with that. There are lots of dogmas, religions, ways of doing things, and that's totally okay. Personally, I'm really about not using words that are loaded with connotations.
Yes, that's actually it.
I like to be very neutral about what it is, but yes, it's one of the realities that exist.
So in the end, it's the concept, not necessarily the wording. Is that right?
You got it all.
In my notes, I also have a place where you wrote, be careful during inheritances and moves. Why do you have to be careful in the end during an inheritance or a move?
I think we've all had an object or an item of clothing that was given to us by someone, or that we bought at a thrift store or a flea market. And that object, it's strange because actually it has the energy of the person in question. So when it comes to inheritances, if these are inheritances that are tense between the heirs, it also creates frequencies and vibrations that aren't great, so we take them in with us. And then when it's things we're going to buy, whether it's on second-hand platforms or at flea markets, well, ask yourself the question when you look at the object, how does it vibrate? Any doubt? No doubt you don't buy it, even if it's a great deal, because it's either going to drain something from you, disturb something, or interfere. It's because you're taking on the energy of the person who owned it.
That's it. So what does that mean? Does it mean there's a soul connected to the object, or does it just mean the object still has some kind of energy?
It left an energetic imprint.
Okay, that works.
There you go. I'll give an example that I find really striking. I'm going to talk about Claude Francois. Claude Francois died in his bathtub. Well, if we look at the aftermath, even when it was bought, some people closed off the bathroom, they removed the bathtub. Well, the lady, the bed was in that spot, she died in that spot. Actually, there's an energy in that apartment that makes that resonate. I'm giving this example because I think it's one of the most telling. But actually, we really have resonances, places where there's an energetic imprint.
That's it.
So be careful with objects, clothes, and furniture. Even though makeovers are very trendy, pay attention to the vibration of Grandma Janine's dresser that you bought at a flea market. Because you're bringing that home, you know?
What I'm about to say is terrible, but then are there strong energy imprints on knight's swords? It's pretty random, but on objects that are ultimately used to kill, or on murder weapons, for example.
They carry death, they carry death.
Yes, that's actually it.
Yes, they carry the fight and the struggle. It's not always a defensive vibration, depending on what it was used for and especially the mindset of the person who used it.
You once saw a case of a manager who was tyrannical. What was that about in the end? What happened?
So I have someone who comes to us and says, I love my job, but I can't take it anymore because there's a new manager who's very ambitious, who humiliates me, who talks to me badly. Much of it occurs behind upper management's backs, like N+2 or 3, never in front of colleagues. Everything is done with malice, etc. And then the fact that this person never set any boundaries made things worse. It snowballed. And then it reached a point of no return where he just couldn't stand this person anymore. And in the end, it was simply someone who fed off other people's fear, who enjoyed feeling powerful, feeling superior. And so he found someone who was rather radiant and who really had a great capacity to be drained.
That's crazy. So what do you do in that situation? Do you give the person advice?
Well, first, I acknowledge the energetic facts and the injustices that the person may have experienced. Then we set the framework by asking, okay, in this situation, what do you have control over? What don't you have control over? And what do you want? Here, we're moving into coaching territory. Ask yourself, do you want conflict with him? Are you aware things can change with the higher-ups? And if that's not the case, with the funnel technique, where do we go and what can you focus on? Actually, people already have a lot of answers within themselves. It's just that sometimes they don't have the space or the environment to be able to do it. I provide people with active listening. I'm not here to find solutions for them. I'm here to listen to them and also help them validate what they're feeling. Because in the way I work, for example, with that toxic manager, I don't wait for the person to come to me, tell me their story, and then I say, there, that's not right. Yes, that happened. Actually, before the person even arrives, I already start working, and I've already written an A4 sheet with everything I felt, and I only have the person's first name. So when she sees that, I tell her, right now, you're experiencing injustices. I see that things aren't going well at work, etc. She broke down saying, finally, someone sees this isn't fair. Her family told her, yes, but you're an engineer with a great job. You can't just leave that. Yes, but I just told you that I'm not doing well because I'm being manipulated, because I'm being humiliated. I'm not here to judge, but just to point out, no, it's not okay the way he's talking to you.
Have you seen people break down after hearing something shocking?
Let's say my first tool is the candle, and the second is the box of tissues.
Okay, yes.
Yes, with me, people come to let their emotions out, so right away I tell them, I'm not a psychologist. And actually, I ask them if they are seeing someone, because I think it's great to be able to let things out, and it's essential. The mind generates a lot of feelings. I have to, I must, why, how? Souls generate emotions, and since I work with souls, I help others release their emotions. And when people come, usually they don't let out joy, happiness.
Okay, yes, so it's actually the opposite. Usually people end up using tissues.
Yeah, there's a lot of anger in our society, a lot of anger, sadness, and fear. Fear comes out a lot too.
Have you ever had people who were apprehensive about coming to an appointment with you, but in the end they left feeling really happy?
So the most beautiful thing I've heard is when people arrive and say to me, I don't know why I'm here, but I know I need to be here.
Yes, okay.
And actually, they've tried everything. They've seen sophrologists, kinesiologists, they've seen therapists, but they feel like there's something more, something they can't quite reach. And that's when I step in, actually. And when they leave and tell me, I feel calmer or lighter, I know I've done what I needed to do.
This may sound odd, but is it related to the energy healing you do? Is it something you recommend, let's say, just once in your life, or regularly, every year, every month, or every day? How does it work?
That's a very relevant question. For me, I'm not about creating dependency. Our body, in my opinion, knows how to self-regulate. You see, there's self-updating. However, there are moments in life when we go through phases where we say, right now, I feel like it's heavy. Well, I like to say that we do a checkup. And during this checkup, sometimes when you need to change all 4 tires, it's better when you have a lift and someone who can help you do it. Actually, that's what energy healing is for me. It's better than trying to do it all by yourself. It might take you more time on your own.
That's it, because actually it really does happen on its own for people. It's just that it takes more time.
It can take a lot more time. Sometimes I'll help someone relieve an emotion they've been carrying around for 3 years, and in 2 hours, we've cleared things up. I work in a one-shot way. We see each other once, that's it. She might have kept that emotion for another 3 or 6 years. It helps speed things up, but it's not always an end in itself.
I was just wondering, does that mean that when people come to see you, usually after just one session, they don't really have any more problems?
For that issue, they don't return for the same problem.
But they might come back for other things.
Exactly, yes. Some want to go further in the process of release or self-healing. Others might want to say, I felt like I was awakening to something. And potentially, since we got explanations from Lucie, because I really see myself as the hiking buddy. You see, when I do a session, it's not like, I'm going to do it for you. So I initiate people at the same time, and some want to continue the initiation. Earlier, you were talking to me about intuition and so on. How can we develop it? Sometimes by having people who are a step ahead of us, who can also give us insights and help us structure things.
There's another story you told us about called My Sister is My Toy. That's harsh. What's going on?
So here we're dealing with heavy energies. Earlier we talked about the lower astral. Now I'm really talking about people who are incarnated but who don't necessarily want to bring us joy and happiness in our lives. I'm in a session where there are several of us, and we're going to practice receiving the energies of people from our families or our friends to understand what these people feel when they're facing us. This is called systemic coaching, so it allows us to feel someone else's emotion. And so automatically when we connect to it, our body posture will change, our gaze will change, and our voice might change because we're somewhat embodied by the person we're asking to have in front of us. This young woman asks for her sister to intervene, and I'm the one chosen to play the role of the sister.
Okay, so basically it's as if the sister is coming, well, as if you're embodying the sister?
Exactly. And then from the moment the sister comes to me, I straighten up. My chest is very open, really. I assert myself. And she looks at her with a look that says, you belong to me. And actually, I don't feel any love. I feel possession, manipulation. And the more we get into the connection they have, the more she's going to use strong words.
Is it the sister in front of you or?
The sister who's inside me.
Yes, that's it.
And she'll really have that look. That's my toy. So if I want you to be okay, you'll be okay. And if I want to hurt you a lot, I'll hurt you a lot.
And what do you do at that moment then?
The session ends, and the sister's spirit doesn't want to leave since she has her toy in front of her and she won't let go. That her sister will never be free because she will never let her go. And when I say let her go, I mean she won't let her be happy. She will make sure to sabotage everything.
Does this story have a happy ending anyway?
Well, there are several ways to look at things when it's like that.
When it starts like that?
When it's like that, the person in front of you, first, she has the exchange with the energy, so she has the choice to position herself. And then it's up to her to decide if she wants to cut the emotional ties afterward. or if she's okay with it.
In that case, for example, did she end the emotional connection or...
In this case, no, she didn't sever the tie.
Okay.
Because that was her truth. It was her way of feeling loved by her sister. Being acknowledged took over that very oppressive energy.
Have you ever been able, for example, to decipher phobias with past lives, you know? I don't know, someone who has a phobia of, I don't know, spiders, vomiting, I have no idea.
Yes, and it's the same. So I included a personal story because the idea was also to share with you what we can each experience as human beings. So I take a past life journey for myself because I'm at a time when I'm opening up my mediumship. And I go into this past life because there's a little pebble in my shoe, you know? You can feel that in my book. There's a little thing to work out. And so in that life, I see myself at my death, and actually I don't care that I'm dead. I feel like I'm being called because I have something else to do. And the person who was guiding me through this past life journey says to me, listen, just follow. So I see myself running and going toward a pond. And in that pond, there was a boat, and I rush to the boat and I see a net. I enter the water, retrieve the person from the bottom, and once I bring them back, I break down, cry, and begin grieving. And then in the next second, it's as if everything goes back to normal. The person I pulled out of the water in that past life is my dad from my life today. And so ever since I was a little girl, my dad, he won't take a bath, he'll only take showers. He won't put more than his ankles in the water. For him, it's just not possible. He loves fishing, but he won't go if the hook is stuck. He'll ask me to go get it from the pond. And it's always been a phobia. Water, it's just not possible for him. I take this past life journey, I don't tell him about it because it's my secret garden, and that's it, it's June, I go back home. I had set up a hot tub in my garden, and my father comes over and says to me, I brought my swimsuit, can I go in the hot tub? And at that moment I realized that resolving what was happening had a direct impact, even if he didn't know about it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so there really are some things that are very impressive and beautiful when you look for the relevant things.
When you say the relevant things, what are the irrelevant things?
Irrelevant? I'm not a fan of let's go into past lives just to wander around.
That's it, yeah.
We go there because there's something, because the energy tells us there's something to bring out. But going there just to ask, what did I do in other lives or who was I, just feeds the ego and not what we truly need.
Is it not good to feed the ego?
There's no good or bad, it's just that I don't do it. Not for myself, nor for the people who would want to come with me.
I think you were once a person, I don't know if it was for yourself or for someone else, but who was afraid to drive. It's possible. What happened in that situation?
This woman comes at the beginning of autumn and says to me, listen, for years now, as soon as it gets dark early, as soon as there are leaves on the road, I don't feel comfortable, I'm not doing well. And then as the years go by, I have more and more anxiety attacks when I have to drive. And last week there was fog and I totally panicked, I couldn't drive. Okay. So she asks me if we can work on it, and at that moment, I say to her, okay, listen, I don't feel like these are anxiety attacks caused by our current reality. I feel like there's a past life involved. She says to me, okay, I'm with you, let's go, we'll open it. So we set up the energy healing to open the movie theater of the past life. And so it's like at first we're spectators, and as it goes on, we become more like actresses, we enter the scene. And at the beginning, we really feel like we're in something. I'm in a region where there are a lot of forests, so we really feel like we're in something with lots of leaves on the road. And then as it goes on, we'll feel this fog more and more around us, damp, thick fog, and so on. And we feel that we're in a car and the car stops, except that the car stops on a railroad track. And actually on our right, there's a train coming to hit the car. So at that moment, we feel the pain waking up here with the shock and the impact. And actually in her cellular memories, in what her soul remembers, fog equals death. So we're going to shed some light on the situation, acknowledge that the soul is no longer living in that life, and that now there isn't necessarily a train passing by on her path every minute. And so it allowed her to find a sense of peace that she hadn't had in years because it was getting worse. I think we always keep a trace and a scar from that fear. It never completely disappears, but it allows you to be calm and to be able to manage it later on, rather than having that pressure cooker effect where you don't know how to handle things anymore.
Does it work the same way with emotions or not necessarily? It's a bit random, but is it the same with negative emotions or when you feel sadness or anxiety? Is it better to accept them, to live with them, or on the contrary, should you keep rejecting them and try not to really? How does it work? I don't know if it's the same.
When you drink water a few hours later, what are you going to do?
I go to the bathroom normally.
It seems so logical to you. Well, when you experience an emotion, your body is like a tube.
Okay.
So normally, you're supposed to experience it, welcome it. let it take the place it needs to take. So if it's anger, you have to let the anger come. If it's sadness, you have to let it express itself. And then that allows it to be released. The more you store, the more you create what I call energetic limescale, and actually you end up disrupting your body's vibration. I like to say, when you go into a room where you've made fries, it smells like fries. If you stay in there, when you come out, you smell like fries. Well, if you've kept your anger and fear, and inside you it smells like anger and fear, the slightest thing from outside that brings joy will be disturbed and interfered with by that fear and anger. So is it really worth living with that?
That's it. So actually, you should let the emotions come and then let them go as well, I guess.
Yes, like inhaling and exhaling, it's a cycle, it comes and it goes, and that's how emotions are too. And bringing them out into the open is also what causes those lovely midlife crises. It's when we've let a lot of things build up, and at some point the body just can't take it anymore. It needs to release and reset things.
You told us another story that really caught my attention, like the others. It's called, "My man hurts me even though he doesn't do anything to me." How is that possible?
It's about a lady who comes to see me and explains that she has her children, her husband. There's never been any infidelity. Things are going very well between them. But she's afraid to leave her children alone with her husband, and the older the children get, the more complicated it becomes for her. And so when I check the energy present, there's no issue. I tell her, listen, I feel like in another life, he probably wasn't very nice to you, and that created this wound. So we go into a past life. Actually, we realize that for reasons of his own in that life, he killed her and the children. And that's why today she has a memory of, at any moment, he could hurt me. So even if today he has never done anything to her, there is this fear and this underlying resistance because it's actually rooted in her.
When you say he has already done that, it means she married the same soul again.
Yes.
How?
We call them soul ties or soulmates. These are souls we've already known in other chapters of our lives. That's why sometimes when we meet certain people, we feel an instant connection. I feel like I already know her. That's because we already do. And then with others, we think, this person hurts me, but I don't know why I can't let go. Actually, it's because we have something to learn with them, something to heal or to fix. These are soul ties.
Damn, that's incredible. So in the end, the legend of people who say, I've found my soulmate, it's actually kind of possible, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Absolutely. You know, me, the first time I saw my husband, I recognized him.
Yes, actually, it's funny. Is your husband sensitive to that? Did he recognize you too, or not necessarily? How does that work?
Not at all. So I come from a commercial and training background, and so does my husband. So we're very logical people, you know. We like to have reasons and results. We like things to be structured. Well, tough luck. At some point, my intuition opened up. I realized that loving someone means accepting them without trying to understand everything. But what's even more beautiful is respecting them. You see him for who he is. For me, when he said I could be anything as long as I'm happy, that's when our soulmate bond truly strengthened. It's the fact that he lets me be myself without being afraid of judgment, without being afraid for me either, or thinking, what she's doing is unknown, I'm not comfortable with it. He doesn't care.
In transgenerational connections, some things you sent us are especially powerful, particularly where a pattern of abuse passes from mother to daughter.
Yes, over 3 generations.
What happened?
So I see the mother. So there was the grandmother, the mother, and the daughter. And a transgenerational link is what our ancestors passed down to us because they weren't able to break the pattern. Sometimes they're poison gifts or simply issues they didn't have time to address. You need to keep perspective. This lady, so her mother, lived with men who weren't necessarily healthy, where there was toxicity in the relationship, where there was violence, whether it was sexual, whether it was in words, whether it was in actions. So she grew up in that environment and she promised herself not to repeat it, except she did repeat it. So she came across people who weren't necessarily kind to her, people who abused her, people who also had those tendencies that were very sexualized. But for her, what made her take action wasn't what she went through herself. It was the fact that her daughter was starting to repeat the same things. And for her, that triggered something, making her say, no, I have to do something. And so her daughter had, unfortunately, despite all the warnings her mother had given her, she fell into the trap of certain people who manipulated her. And so that was the trigger for the mother. And that's what really made her let go of this idea of, I'm not going to repeat this, I'm not an object, I don't owe anything. I don't owe anything to men, actually. I have the right to be myself. By deciding for herself, she also freed her daughter from it.
Okay.
But it's true that I felt a lot of compassion for that woman and that family because it's actually a heavy burden.
And how does it work? does it mean that from generation to generation there's some kind of misfortune that follows them? Or how does it work?
Well, in some cases we can talk about beliefs, in some cases vibrations, and sometimes transgenerational connections. I had an alcoholic father, so I became an alcoholic too. Sometimes there are situations where I saw my father hit, so I do the same. There you go. The transgenerational connection is, I repeat something that hurts all of us, but I still keep weaving it and feeding it. And sometimes we think they're good. Some connections like, I have to succeed, I have to be the best. Sometimes we have this thing of, I have to make them proud, and it hurts people. Because sometimes their true purpose isn't to be a leader, to be a business owner, to want to be... Some people just long for peace, for tranquility.
Yeah, that's it.
And so breaking that link sometimes, it's also about those things.
I think you've already had twin souls once, right? How does it work in that case? Someone who feels like they have half of their soul.
Well, generally they don't feel it.
Okay.
We're going to go into the details of life itself. And then when I start to connect energetically, I'm deeply connected to baby souls and to twin souls too, since these are usually souls that haven't incarnated. And it's happened to me many times that I tell people, I feel a brother, I feel a sister. No, I'm alone, or I'm an only child, or I already have a brother. No, I feel a twin. And then I see the soul, I feel where it is. So I explain to them, when I put my hands here, you might start to cry, you might break down. Because in fact, souls recognize each other. And so when I open the connection between you two, you won't understand why you're breaking down. And so sometimes I have very rational people who look at me and say, yeah, okay, I have nothing to prove. I know what I feel. And from the moment I put my hands. So I had it happen with this man where I started. He broke down. He told me, that's my sister. Her name is this, etc., etc. I told him, you've always felt alone because a part of you didn't come with you. She didn't incarnate with you for her own reasons. And actually it helped to grieve something that always remained misunderstood, and that on top of that couldn't even be described or understood. And then just being able to say, wow, I really feel like I let go of something, and it brings me love because I'm connected to something that makes me feel good. It helps me get back on my feet.
You were talking about opening something. Do you actually do something visually, or is it just, actually you said it's like you're opening something there, but then how does it actually work?
A soul, I see it a bit like a flame. Okay. And actually I see it like a connected phone line. And there the sister was connected here to his right kidney.
Okay.
So there you go. And I'm going to connect to the soul. And then I say, I turn it on, and I turn on the connection.
Have you known very rational guys who didn't believe at first, but eventually did?
First of all, it makes me laugh because when they tell me I'm rational, yes, but in the meantime, you still made an appointment.
Yeah, that's it.
I think what attracts them to me is that I'm rational. And actually, I try to give all the ins and outs of what's happening. I try to simplify things as much as possible. Because I don't like the idea that energy work is hard or that you have to be initiated. We're all made of energy, it's just that no one teaches us that, So I like to simplify things. Once people are introduced to it, they can't really say they're rational anymore. They say, I really felt the magnetism in my legs. I really felt the soul that was next to me. So it validates something. Actually, it's something I didn't know about, but it's not something I don't believe in. Do you see the difference?
What do you think about, it's unrelated, huh? But about card readings, I think it's something, I don't know if it's something mediums do or not really.
I think it's great. Actually, it's a tool. Like some people use tarot cards, others use oracles, others use pendulums, others use rods. It's just a way. That's it. For me, as a medium, I'm really like, if I use an oracle, it's just for fun. But I don't need any tool to get information, of course. And it actually helps to develop certain intuitions. However, you always have to be kind to yourself. If you find yourself drawing a card because you absolutely want a certain answer, forget it. Put your deck aside. You're not in the right mindset. But if you're really like, okay, I welcome whatever comes, let's go, let's see what happens. The mindset is different. So then what happens is much more genuine. It's not your mind that's trying to get information, it's really your heart, your soul that's seeking to...
So it's not possible to say, okay, I want to know, I don't know. I want to know if I'm going to have a better life later. And so I draw cards hoping to get that answer. That's not possible in your opinion?
If we empower ourselves to act, we can change our lives since we are the actors of our own stories. But if we really just wait for someone else to validate our choices, or if we need to be reassured, instead of trusting ourselves and taking action, we're not putting our energy in the right place.
Yeah, that's it.
For me, it's just smoke and mirrors.
There's another rumor that people kind of associate with mediums more in movies or in collective images. It's that kind of ball where There are these kinds of balls, or there are crystal balls where there are things inside. So is that real? Are there really people who use that or not necessarily?
But it's the same. It's just a tool, like reading coffee grounds, like some people use runes or anything else. It's not an issue. Everything is energy. I can channel someone's energy into a pillow, into a figurine, just like you can do it into someone's body as well. So whether you put it on cards or in a crystal ball, anything is possible.
Have you ever had women grieving, for example, who couldn't have their baby or had to terminate their pregnancy, for example?
Actually, there are women who had to end certain pregnancies either by their own choice or due to outside pressure, and who haven't necessarily grieved for that baby, who locked that emotion away in a safe. Well, sometimes 40 years later, it comes back up. And so I have the story of a lady who came to see me. You can tell she's into personal growth, cares for herself, and is working through her wounds. She's clearly invested in it. And then the first thing I channeled actually was that I felt the soul of a baby next to her. I'm able to sense when it's a baby that's supposed to arrive or when it's a baby that has left. Here, I feel that it's a baby who has left. So I tell her, I felt that there was a baby's soul. She breaks down and tells me, listen, I'm 50 years old and I've been working on personal development for 20 years. I was forced to have an abortion when I was 17. It wasn't my choice, and I've been waiting for 20 years for someone to help me, and you're the only person who saw it. So I connected her to the soul of that baby so she could say goodbye, and we brought it back to the light.
Is it possible for the deceased to grieve as well, or not necessarily?
Yeah, well, it's pretty rare, but it did happen to me once. A client told me, listen, it's been a week that I can't go into my room anymore. There's someone there, something's wrong, something's wrong. Okay, I connect, and I tell you what I see, and I say to her, listen, your room faces a busy street. And I tell her, the lady is on your second stained glass window and she's looking out. You must have a school or a daycare downstairs. She's looking for a baby. She says to me, yes, there's a school downstairs. Okay, and actually this woman died in childbirth. She died while giving birth, so she never had her baby. And she was waiting to see her child. And it was a death that had happened within the last 5 or 6 years. So with the school, we were consistent about who she was waiting for. And she was mourning the baby that she wasn't able to have.
I'll just finish with this somewhat absurd question since I'm almost done anyway. Is it possible for the deceased wandering souls to appear at unexpected moments? I don't know, for example, I'm just saying something random, but you're giving a presentation in class. Or on the contrary, you're in an intimate moment with your boyfriend, for example. Could there be deceased people present at those times, or is everything closed off?
Well, first of all, when they're up there, they don't see the same things as we do. They see our souls, they don't see our bodies the same way we do. And yes, because actually when you're in moments where you're more in full awareness, in the present moment, you see when you're connected to the now, it's easier for them to come. And so yes, they often come to give us little signs during certain moments in our lives. Either to let us know they're present, or to tell us that everything will be okay, or to wish us things. These kinds of appearances really do happen.
And it doesn't bother you thinking that at any moment, I don't know, it's a strange question, but at any moment there are deceased people who can actually see your life?
Well, I tell myself that when we're up there, it'll be the same. And anyway, that's just how it works.
That's right.
The mechanism of what I feel and what I've been able to pick up, so it doesn't really bother me. I live with it.
Lucie, thank you very much. Just before we finish this video, can we find you somewhere? Do you have an Instagram, a website?
So you can find me on my Instagram, it's Lucie Bron, and also on my website, Lucie Bron. That's it.
Can we make an appointment there, or should we contact you on Instagram? What's the usual process?
So you have the links to book directly on my online calendar, either for guidance sessions or energy healing, soul healing sessions.
These are also questions, but do you only work with people who are in your area? Or can someone, for example, make an appointment for a video call or something like that? Is that possible or not?
Anywhere in the world.
Okay.
I have clients in Switzerland, Belgium, Portugal, and the Emirates.
That's crazy. And in France too.
And in France,